We're going to be having sessions during the next 8 weeks, about 1 session per week. We're going to have 9 sessions in total. So please follow us on our social networks so that you can have like a bit more detail about the schedule that we're going to be having, and so that you can also join every session and have like all the workshops, the trainings that we're going to be providing during this time. As I was mentioning, we are bringing this to you in partnership with IDB. We're very happy for all the support that IDB and the vision that they're bringing to this program. And so please, Ana Luisa, welcome. Please tell us about IDB and about yourself.
Thank you, Rogelio. Hello, everyone. As Rogelio said, my name is Ana Luisa. I am the community lead for We Exchange, which is the platform of IDB Lab to connect women entrepreneurs in STEM with mentors and investors. We are very excited about this program and the opportunity to be able to share with you throughout these 8 sessions, spread knowledge, and give you access to other testimonies, to other stories, and to more knowledge. I don't know if most of you know about We Exchange, but as I mentioned, it's a platform of the IDB Lab to connect women entrepreneurs with mentors and investors. We have been doing an annual forum since 2013. This year, we will be having an annual forum virtually on December 1st and 2nd. But we also try to do a series of activities throughout the years to give other women entrepreneurs like you the opportunity to connect and acquire more tools and skills to develop their entrepreneurial journey. So I just want to thank you for being here, for your interest, and also encourage you to keep connecting to the sessions, to spread the word, because although these sessions in this format are going to be invite only, we will be streaming the sessions on YouTube, so you can share this information with other entrepreneurs, women or male entrepreneurs. It doesn't matter. I think the idea is to be able to share this opportunity and to give access to this knowledge to as many entrepreneurs and as many startup collaborators as possible. I do want to thank Central for their support and for making this possible. They have been an incredible partner, and I hope you will enjoy these sessions. And if there's anything else you think for you, please feel free to reach us through an email.
Thank you very much, Ana Luisa. I also want to introduce the rest of the team so that you know this is a team effort. So please, Meli, Lau, if you want to introduce yourselves.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Some of you already heard about me. So I'm Melissa Vargas. Now you have a face. And I'm campus manager at Central. And very happy to have you all. Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Laura. I'm really happy to see you and meet you all. Hope you have a great session and just learn as much as possible and ask as many questions as possible. Welcome, everyone.
Yes, and also please, you can contact us anytime. We're going to give you our contact details at the end of the session in case you need anything in particular regarding We Exchange Ignite. And of course, we also hope to keep in touch with you. So we're going to be running, of course, different programs throughout 2022. So let's keep in touch. We will give you our contact details a little later. And also about the session, please use all the different channels to make your questions. Of course, you can make your questions here in Zoom. For the people seeing on YouTube, you can also make your questions on YouTube. And then we're also providing you with a document. If you have questions before the sessions start, you can also submit your questions, and we're going to be trying to read them all and go through them during the sessions. We're going to be recording all of these, and you're going to be able to find them in our YouTube channel. So in case you want to share them with someone else, they're going to be available right here. So this time, we're very happy to have Eric Perez Grovas. Eric is a friend of Central, a friend of the startup ecosystem in reality. Eric, thank you very much. He's partner at Jaguar Ventures, and he's been in the startup ecosystem for a very long time. So Eric, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. If not, I'm going to be giving you I'm going to be giving a lot of detail. So please go ahead and let's start with today's session.
Thank you very much, Rogelio. Yes, I'm old. I've been in the digital ecosystem since 1999, when I was very lucky to study at the same time with the founder of Mercado Libre, with Marcos. And because of that, Marcos at the time invited me to open and manage Mercado Libre Mexico. And that was a very fortunate thing for me, because it put me right into the digital world very early. That being said, I've been associated with the entrepreneurial world since I was a kid. I am the very proud son of an entrepreneurial mother, to whom I owe basically all the few talents or values that I have. I owe them completely to my mother. So every time that I have the opportunity to speak with a forum of entrepreneurial women, I feel very proud. And this is not my first time that I've been invited to speak at We Exchange. I was very fortunate to be invited in your session in Lima some years ago, and I really cherish this. That being said, let me start my presentation, which is what you came to see. Okay, can you all see my screen? You should be reading something said El Código del Jaguar. Perfect. So the purpose of this presentation is to give you advice regarding what I've been able to learn from meeting extraordinary entrepreneurs, starting with my mother. I've been very fortunate that through my life, I've been able to meet extraordinary people. And on the other hand, I've been fortunate to read about extraordinary people. And based on those two experiences is that I have been gathering what I believe are the most important traits that a CEO should have. And it's this, it's to have courage, to have vision, to build a culture around a magnificent team, to define the strategy, and very important, to do the sales required to raise money. So I'm gonna speak about all this, and I'm gonna make pauses through the presentation in case you want to make questions. So let's start with courage. I'm the first one to know about the courage of a woman entrepreneur, and that is my mother. She raised my brother and myself, and now I am the fortunate father of two amazing daughters and also an amazing boy, Victoria, Hugo, and Fernanda. So the only thing you need, every time somebody asks me, what do you need to become an entrepreneur? There's only one thing you need, and it's courage. That's all you need. You don't need anything else. And I can tell you that by experience, by looking at my mother. She was the last person that wanted to become an entrepreneur, and she did because she needed to. She had to raise two kids, and it was the only way for her to have the flexibility to raise two kids and at the same time having the means to sustain us. So it's courage. So I was in a forum a year ago. Mercado Libre invited me to a forum, and we were asked by the director of Mercado Libre, are entrepreneurs born or formed? And I was very surprised that all my panel answered born. And I believe that is very wrong. I am the first one to know that you can become whatever you want. So if you are in the process of deciding if you want to become or not an entrepreneur, believe me, the only thing you need is the courage to do it. Then once you have the courage to do it, it is extremely important that you do it with the most ambitious vision that you can have. When I look back at all the entrepreneurs that I've been fortunate to meet, what I can tell you that they are all different. They have some good things, some bad things, but the thing that they all have in common from the day that I met them was an extraordinary vision of where they wanted to take their company. I remember in this same Mercado Libre event that I was telling you, they passed a video of Marcos at the beginning of Mercado Libre in which he was saying, we are going to be the biggest retailer, not e-commerce platform, but retailer in all Latin America. And Marcos was saying this in 1999 when e-commerce was virtually inexistent. And I was there. I remember looking at him saying that and myself believing this guy is crazy. This guy, it's good that I'm with him, but he's crazy. He did it. Right now, if you see the market cap of Mercado Libre, you will see it is the most valuable retailer in the region. But that has been the constant in all the entrepreneurs that I have met. It was a constant with Carlos from Kavak. When I met him, he emphatically said, we are going to be the largest car retailer in all Latin America. He's already doing that, and actually he's expanding. David from Confio told me exactly the same. Mariana from Ben & Frank told me we are going to be the largest ophthalmic retailer in Mexico, and she's on the way of becoming that. So all starts with a very ambitious vision. That being said, as I was telling you, I was raised by my mom. And something that she taught me, and it's very ingrained in my system, and it has been extremely powerful. It's a phrase that says, I'm going to say it in Spanish, and then I'm going to translate it. This, hechos son amores. Basically, my mom raised my brother and myself telling us what it matters in life is not what you say, but what you do. And I remember bringing her bad grades and telling her, I love you, mom, I love you. And she will just take them and reply, hechos son amores. I don't care if you love me, I care about good grades. And that's the way I was raised. And it has been extremely helpful in my life for many things, not for building or for telling an amazing vision. And let me tell you why. There are two ways of looking at a vision. One is what sustains the vision. And those are the pillars, the thing on the left. But then you have what the vision is. Where you want to take your company, your organization to. And for many years, I was a terrible salesperson, terrible. I would go and try to sell things, and I would always fail. Until I read a book by, I always forget his name, it's the same guy that wrote Homo Sapiens. And he wrote a book, he wrote Homo Sapiens, and he wrote Homo Deus, and then he wrote 21 lessons for the 21st century. And in the third book, he wrote something that I found very compelling. He wrote that the visions that compel, the visions that humanity embraced, are not those that are sustained by very solid pillars, but are those that promise you the sky, heaven. And in this book, he says, if you think back, what are the greatest visions that humanity have bought, saying it in a crude way, are religions. The visions that humanity has embraced with more fervor are religions. And if you see what religions tell you, and please, my mom is very religious, so please don't take this as I'm against religion. But if you see the basis of religions, they're not very solid. They ask you to believe in impossible things. They ask you to believe that a person came back from death. They ask you to believe other religions that you will come back in another life. They ask you to believe that there is a heaven there. So in all honesty, if you were pragmatically, it's not very solid fundamentals. But the problem for people like myself that were raised by a mother that continuously told you that hechos son amores, it was very difficult to sell a vision that had no pillars built. But those are the visions that you need to sell. So my first advice for you as CEOs, as entrepreneurs, is when you formulate, when you think about your vision, don't think about the pillars. Those will come, you're gonna build them, but think about the dream that you are building. Also, try to make it as ambitious as you can. And let me tell you an anecdote. I don't know if you have ever played Risk, but it's a game in which you have to conquer the world. That's the objective of the board game. And once when I was in college, I was invited to play a Risk game on a massive scale. It was a Risk game that was played on the auditorium of the university, and it was played by 100 people at the same time. And I studied in Mexico college. It was the first time that this version of Risk was played outside of the US and England. It was the creators of this game had always played it in either the US or England. It was the first time outside of those two countries. So I was Russia. I was by luck I was given Russia. At the end of the game, the organizers were surprised that it finished on global peace. All of us, all Mexicans playing the game, and some Central and South Americans, we were able to organize ourselves to destroy our nuclear weapons and to achieve global peace. And the organizers were very proud of us. And they told us, this is the first time ever that we have seen this. This game always ends with total war, with global, and actually that was the purpose of the game, to teach students that you should not try to conquer the world because it ends up in nuclear destruction. But in my case, I was not happy. Actually, the more I thought about it, I become depressed, because what I realized is that, at least in my case, and obviously in the rest of my companions, we lacked ambition. The reason why this game always finished in the UK and the US in total war is because the players were much more aggressive. For example, in my case, that I was the leader of Russia, there was a moment in the game in which I was the only one with nuclear missiles. I could have conquered the world, and I didn't, because I decided to follow the example of my US teammate and follow peace. But that was not a good idea for the Russian people. So my advice to you is, sometimes in Latin America, we are not as aggressive as our northern companions. So don't do that. Be as aggressive as you can, because believe me, there is going to be someone that is going to be more aggressive than you. So when you formulate your vision, be as aggressive as you can be. Last point in vision. Something that I have always, when I think back about the best investments that we have made, something that it's normally common is that this ambitious vision is reflected from how they name their company, from the ambitions on the brand. And this is very important, because your brand is what it's going to be heard by everyone. So every time that someone hears about you, the first thing they're going to hear about you is your brand. And many times I get entrepreneurs that when I ask them about the mythology of their brand, I'm surprised how little thought they put into it. Many times they tell me, oh, we wrote 10 names and this is the one that we like the most. Don't do that. Create a brand that is aligned with your vision, because believe me, many years from now, this is going to be extremely useful for you. So now I'm gonna make a pause right now in case anybody has a question regarding vision. Any questions? Well, if there are no questions now, I'm gonna move to culture. What is culture? So the origin of the word culture comes from cultivar, actually, from cultivate something. It's the base from which your company, from which your organization is going to grow. The other day I read someone that says culture is how people behave when you're not around. There is a very good book that I recommend any entrepreneur to read, that it's called The Culture Code. And in this book, the author analyzes what are the elements of a successful culture. And he discovers there are three very important elements that any successful culture should have. The first one is that in a successful culture, everybody participates. In our case, when we invest in a company, we try to go to their weekly meetings, because for us it's very helpful to see what they're measuring, how they organize themselves. And something that I have realized is that the most successful companies in which we have invested, their weekly meetings are meetings in which everybody participates. On the other hand, some of the not so successful companies in which we have invested, typically the CEO is the one that speaks the most. So every time you have a meeting with your team, be conscious about who and who is not participating, because you want to have a team in which everybody participates. The second element of a successful culture is the capacity of embracing vulnerability. Why vulnerability is so important? First, because you want your people to know that they can fail. And if you, as a leader, do not show that you yourself are vulnerable, nobody's gonna be willing to take risks. So as a leader, it's very important that you show your team that if you make a mistake, it's okay. Embrace your mistake as a CEO, so the rest of your team can see that you're okay with being vulnerable. And that is what is going to allow your team to be willing to take risks, but also be willing to learn from mistakes. So the second element is be willing to be vulnerable, starting with yourself. And the third element of a successful culture, according to this book, is vision. People is compelled to work in a company that has a clear and ambitious vision. The clearer and more ambitious your vision is, the more compelled your organization is feel to work. So if you believe this book that I believe, three very important elements for a successful culture: collaboration between everybody, embrace vulnerability, and have a clear and aggressive vision. That being said, there are other elements that I have seen in successful organizations. One extremely important is to follow metrics. If you have taken some of the courses that Google gives for entrepreneurs, you're gonna hear about OKRs. OKRs is what Google and many other companies uses to follow, track how they are doing in their objectives. But it's not the only one. I think it's a very good platform, and I do recommend that you use it, but there are many platforms. This one that you are seeing is actually what was used by one of the companies that had the highest growth in the entrepreneurial world, and it's Uber. This is what Travis Kalanick would use to follow on a weekly basis how the company was evolving. So my advice for you is that every week you have metrics that you follow. One of the clearest signs that I know that a company is not going correctly is when I go to their weekly meetings and they don't follow weekly numbers. If you don't follow weekly numbers, you're doing something wrong. That being said, as I told you, this is what Travis Kalanick used. And it's also a good example of something that you should not do. If you have read, there is a very good book about Uber. I forgot the name, but it came out last year, if I remember correctly. As they were good at following metrics, they were bad at having a culture that respected individuality, that respected people. So it's also very important that as you follow metrics, you don't forget the importance of people. So that you have a culture that respects everybody. So also be very mindful about that. One of the best lessons I have heard, not only about management, but about life, came from a gardener. A friend of mine wanted to be able to grow plants in his apartment. This is true. This is a true anecdote. And this poor guy, all his plants died. And he met a good gardener, and he told me, I don't know what to do. I have my plants, I put them water, I put them the best, I don't know how to say it in English, abono, what you put for plants to grow. I even put the music, I give them sunlight, and they die. They grow, and then they die. And the gardener told him, that's the problem. You are spoiling them. You are giving them too much water, too much nutrients. You're making them life easier. And he explained him that when you give a plant at the beginning of its life a lot of water and a lot of nutrients, you don't force the plant to have to grow its roots because it has everything at the top of the soil. And that's okay at the beginning. But as the plant grows, it needs to have very deep roots because thin roots would not allow it to grow. So if you don't give them little water, you don't force them to grow those roots. And this is exactly the same with resources. What I have learned about the best entrepreneurs is that it's those that cherish every cent that they have available. Peter Thiel, one of the best investors there is in the world, it's one of the first investors in Facebook, it's the founder of PayPal. He says that if he could ask only one question to an entrepreneur before deciding if he will invest or not, is what salary did the entrepreneur gave herself? And normally the people believe that the reason for that is that if the entrepreneur is earning a small salary, then it has a very big incentive to be very successful. But I don't think that's true. And I remember, and that came from being in the office of a woman entrepreneur and hearing her talk with a supplier. And I remember her telling him, if you believe I'm going to pay you that is X times the salary I give myself, you are crazy. And that's when I realized that good entrepreneurs value every cent and fight for it from the beginning. And it's very important because if there's something you don't have as entrepreneurs, it's money. So if you don't use it as scarcely as possible, it's going to be very complicated for you later in life. I don't know if you know who this person is. I'm pretty sure most of you know who he is. He's Jeff Bezos. But the importance of this image is the table in which he is, that appears in the picture. This table is now, this type of table is present in all Amazon offices. And the reason for it is when Jeff Bezos started Amazon, he calculated what was cheaper, if buying tables or if buying doors and putting 4 sticks into the doors to create a table. And it was cheaper to buy the doors and put the 4 sticks. And since then, this is the message that Jeff Bezos has embraced in all the employees of Amazon. And it's also the same message that I have seen in some of the most successful entrepreneurs in which I have invested. Google, who many people, when they visit their offices and see they are lavish and they have masseuse and chambers for meditating, and therefore they believe that they throw money into the air. There's nothing more contrary to that. Google has a phrase that says, Google never pays retail. And that means that if you are ever going to buy something for Google, you have to negotiate the best price available. And actually, there's an anecdote of Google that tells you about this. When Google was born, they were competing. Their main competitor was a company called Intomi. Both were fighting in the search engine ecosystem. And both, curiously, had their servers in the same server farm. At the moment, they were not the rich companies they have, but now they have their own servers. So they had to rent servers from a third party. And this third party, the way in which they rented the service was not by server, it was by a square meter. So Google very quickly realized that in order to be successful, they should cram as much servers as possible into that square meter. And it got to a point in which Google had 30 servers, if I remember correctly, per square meter for every server that the competitor had. So my advice for you is cherish every cent and embrace your organization into doing that. Another very important of a successful culture is one in which decisions are made fast, and once they are taken, they are embraced by the whole organization. There is this methodology designed by Bain and Company, and you can look for it in internet. It's a 2-page document, and I recommend that you read it. And what Bain discovered is that successful companies are the ones that their decision process are clearly concentrated in one person. That doesn't mean that every decision is taken by just the same person, but that every decision that is going to be taken has only one decider. Why is that? Because when there's more than one decider, things take a long time. So my advice for you is, for every decision you have to have a very clearly process of who is going to decide. And it's also very important that once you take the decision, the organization embrace it. There's nothing more destructive for an organization than when people decide not to embrace what was decided, because that slows you. What you can do is say, okay, you do not agree with the decision, it's okay. We can reevaluate the decision in a given time, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, you decide. But right now, you have to embrace it. That being said, another very important principle of decisions is one formulated actually by Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. Jeff Bezos says that there are 2 types of decisions: one-way decisions and two-way decisions. Two-way decisions are those in which you can come back, are those that if you took a bad decision, it's not the end of the world, because you can always change. That being said, there are one-way decisions that once you take them, it's very difficult to come back. And one example for that is when Amazon decided to have a new headquarters. It took them, if I remember correctly, more than a year to take that decision, because they knew that once they took that decision, it was going to be very difficult to revert. So my advice is very quickly decide if it's a one-way or a two-way decision. If it's a two-way decision, don't take too long to take it. But if it's a one-way decision, definitely take the correct time to take. Another very important element of a successful culture is the ability to learn from your mistakes. This is a Japanese symbol called daruma that comes from a story of a person without limbs, without arms, without legs. And the story is about the ability of this person to be able to raise up. His motto is, I fall 7 times, I raise up 8 times. And what is important about this? It's not only the ability to be able to raise yourself from mistakes, but to learn from them. One of the things that I enjoy reading the most is biographies. And one that I enjoyed particularly was the one by Peter of Peter the Great, which is the person that took Russia from being a provincial country to being one of the most important countries in the world. When Peter was starting his process as a Tsar, at the same time, there was another very famous ruler, which was Georgia of Sweden. And Georgia of Sweden had all the elements that I have spoken about what a good CEO is. Georgia of Sweden was someone that has a very agile organization. He took decisions very fast. He was very good about, he has a very ambitious vision, etc. And very early in their lives, they confronted each other in St. Petersburg. And because all these amazing traits that George had, he defeated Peter the Great. Even though the army that George had was smaller, and he was also fighting in enemy territory. But George had so many abilities that his army destroyed the Russian army, to the point that Peter the Great had to run away to Moscow. At the end of this fight, the lesson for George was, oh my God, we are amazing. We are so good that we can defeat these guys any second we want. And instead of pursuing Peter the Great to Moscow and conquering Russia, he decided that they were not worth their time at the moment. And he decided to go fight who he believed was a more worthy opponent, which at the time was Poland. The lesson for Peter, as you can imagine, was different. He discovered they were a terrible army and that they needed to improve. And that's what he did. And from that moment on, he copied a lot of what he saw in George, and he built an amazing army, to the point that when they met again, I think from the size of the countries today, you can imagine who won. So no matter how good you are, you're going to have failures. That's a craft of being an entrepreneur. Those are going to be your most important lessons. Don't let them go to waste. Learn from those lessons. Finally, last trait about a successful entrepreneurial culture, well, any culture. Learn from your customer, particularly in your case that you're in the process of creating your value proposition. This process that you see here is a process that the Stanford Design School recommends following, and the Stanford Design School is one of the best in the world. But it's also very similar to what one of the greatest ideation companies in the world called IDEO recommends. And it starts with what you see in white, with empathizing with your customer. And empathizing with your customer doesn't mean speaking with your customer. It means understanding your customer. Ford used to say that if he had asked his customers what they wanted, they would not have said a fast and cheap car. They would have said a car with 100 horses. So what you need to do with your customer is understand her pains. The most successful CEOs that I know do this on a regular basis. Marcos from Mercado Libre, every week, I don't know if he still does it, but every week he would meet with pools of both sellers and buyers from Mercado Libre. All of them do this. So find what works for you, but be sure that you are continuously trying to understand your customer and redefining your value proposition around it. So that would be culture. I don't know if there are any questions at the moment. So no questions. Okay. This session is going to be very fast. Now, let me talk about team. If you are going to just get one slide from all this presentation, my advice is that you copy this slide. Probably some of you don't know who Jack Welch is, but Jack Welch was at the time the CEO of the most valuable company in the world, which was General Electric. That's not the case anymore, but at the moment, General Electric was the most valued in terms of market cap, and also the most admired company. And as you can imagine, this company had more resources than any other company in the world, had the best processes that any other company in the world had. And that being said, Jack Welch believed that the most important thing was people. And when I go back to see what were the traits of the most successful people we have invested, there are two, and I'm going to say the second later. But the first one was their ability to hire and surround themselves with people better than them. We have invested in amazing people that we believe were going to be incredibly successful, and they failed. And normally, the number one reason why they failed is because they didn't hire people better than themselves. That being said, is how do you hire amazing people, which is a very difficult thing to do. There is a concept called, that I learned, I'm part of a fellowship called Kaufman Fellowship, which is a fellowship that teach you to be a better investor. And one of the first things that they teach you is to learn about your zone of genius. What is your zone of genius? Your zone of genius is what you do great, but you also love doing. The person you're seeing in the image is Marie Curie. And the reason I put her is, if you put genius in Google, you will see two people, Albert Einstein and Marie Curie. So I believe Marie Curie is better. Why is so important to learn what your zone of genius is? Because what successful people do is that they embrace their virtues. There is a very good book that I recommend everybody, that it's called Barking Up to the Wrong Tree, that analyzes what successful people do. Some people believe that in order to be successful, you have to become better at your deficiencies. The problem is that becoming better at your deficiencies is extremely hard, if not impossible. And the reason for that is, I read Harvard Business Review did an article about this. What happens is that our brain, since a very early stage, becomes evolving according to our virtues. So whenever you try to go against that, you are literally trying to modify your brain. And that's very hard. So in order to be successful, you have to embrace your virtues. That being said, for sure, for you to have a successful organization, your virtues will not be enough. And that's when the team becomes extremely important. And therefore, you have to hire people that complement you. I don't know if you're familiar with the Myers-Briggs test, but it's a test that helps you understand personalities in 4 different traits. If you are introverted or extroverted, if you are very organized, or if you're not organized, but on the other hand, you are very good at accepting change, if you're a visionary of your details, etc. This is one way in which you can find useful to understand more about yourself, but also more about the people you are surrounding with. And this slide that you're seeing, it's a funny way of putting the Myers-Briggs personalities that always come in 4 words. I am an ENTP, according to who they believe each Avenger is according to their Myers-Briggs personality. One of the most fightest discussions I have had with my partner is who is the best Avenger, and believe us, it has been a discussion, and I believe is Stark, and for me it's very obvious. Curiously, when I saw this, I said, oh, who is the opposite of ENTP? I am an ENTP, and the complete opposite of ENTP is ESFJ. And who do you believe is the Avenger that my partner admires the most? So it's not surprising that it is the boring Captain America. And part of the reason of our success, and I don't say this to brag, but we do have been, fortunately, very successful, is because we complement each other very well. For every stupid decision that for every stupid idea that I come up with, Cristobal has a more solid plan. On the other hand, I have very few, but I have some few virtues that Cristobal doesn't. So my first advice for you when building a team is that you find people that complement you. That being said, always strive for amazing people. People that complement you, but that are amazing in their own way. One of the biggest mistakes that I see with the startups, particularly with successful ones, is that they're trying to grow so fast that they need people, and then they start hiring whoever gets by the door. That's how it is. They really need so much people. One of our investments, Nubank, they are hiring right now, I think, 700 people. So my advice for you is, it's going to happen. You're going to need to hire a lot of people. So in order for you to be successful at this, try to anticipate it as much as possible, and try to be mental collectors of potential talent. One question that I always make when I'm deciding to make an investment or not, and if I ever have the opportunity to speak with you, I will ask you this question. I will ask you, tell me right now, who are the people that you can get their WhatsApp and you will hire? And the reason I ask the WhatsApp is because I don't want them to tell me, oh, I would hire Jeff Zuckerberg. No, yeah, I would hire too, but I want to know about people that they can have an access to and that they are already putting into their mind that they will hire them. To give you an idea, some of the people that have been hired by companies we have invested, it took them a year. So don't allow your organization to have to hire massively without having thought first who you want to hire. Because particularly at the beginning, it's crucial that you hire the right team, much more because of what we spoke before about culture. To have an amazing culture, you have to have amazing people. So have this mental inventory of who you want to hire and hire amazing people always. Something that I also see happen is that they don't take into account to hire people ready for the startup world. People don't know, but the reason why pirates use a patch in their eye is not because they were very unfortunate people that lost eyes very frequently. It is because pirates, in the middle of naval fights, they had to move from very high, from very sunny environment, because they would have to go out and see how the fight was going. But then they would have to run down to the bottom of the boat where the cannons were to give them orders, to tell them, you have to align them this way or that way. And what happened is that when they went into the low light situation, they would not see. So that's why they had the the patch. So when they went into the canyon area, they would remove the patch and they would have an eye ready for the low light situations. When you hire people for a startup, they need to be ready to, on one hand, have this amazing vision that we spoke at the beginning, but also to understand that you don't have resources. So I have seen startups hire amazing people with a lot of experience, but that were not used to not being able to have an assistant, consultants, the best advertising agencies in the world, all good things to have when you already have a lot of money, but not at the beginning. So whenever you hire talent that comes from organizations with a lot of money, be sure that those people are ready to come to an organization that is not going to be able to provide them those kind of resources, because if not, it's going to be a fail for everybody. Sometimes startups will ask me to interview people for them, and that's one of the things that I always cover with very good resume people. If they are or not ready to embrace a low, an organization with few resources. Something that I also see very frequently is that they will ask me, oh, Eric, we're looking to hire, I don't know, someone for marketing. And then I will tell them, okay, that's fine, but do you need them to be good in what? In Google, in Facebook, in TikTok, in email marketing? Do you need them to be good managing agencies? Do you need them to be good doing PR? And I'm always surprised that they don't know what they want to hire. So my advice for you is never allow your organization to hire someone if there's not a document explaining what that person is. This is an example that comes from a book called The A Method for Hiring. It's one that I recommend, but there are many. But just the process of putting in black and white what you need every person to have will be helpful for your whole organization. So do that. Every time you're going to hire someone, do this. Create a document that explains what you're looking for, and every person that is going to interview that person has to have this document in mind. Many times, I have, for example, every time I make these questions, who you are going to hire? Who is the list of people you're going to hire? And sometimes they will come back with an amazing list of people. And sometimes they will come back with a mediocre list of people. They will tell me, oh, I will hire the CMO of this startup that has just raised X. Well, they don't say that, but I know that. And then I ask them, okay, if I can allow you to hire whoever you want, who will you hire? And they come back with a very bad list. And I tell them, why? Why do you come back with such a bad list if I ask you to choose whoever you want? And sometimes they tell me, because how am I going to hire them if I have no money? How am I going to hire the VP of marketing from this amazing company if I don't have the salary to pay them? And it's a valid comment. And actually, it made me think, because I understood the dilemma of this person. And what I realized is that those that I've known that have hired amazing people without having money is because they were selling them an amazing vision. And this is then why we come back to vision. When Marcos hired me, and this is a personal experience, I had done my MBA paid by McKinsey, so I owed McKinsey a lot of money. So it was very difficult for me to quit McKinsey in order to go join a startup that had 6 guys at the time. And I said yes, but I was not the only one that said yes. Other 5 friends of mine from the MBA said yes also. And when I think about what Marcos did to convince us, because he didn't pay us a lot of money, he sold us an amazing vision. And we believe him, and we embrace that vision. So my advice for you is, if you want to hire amazing talent without the money, you need to sell them an amazing vision, and you will be able to do it. If you have an amazing mission, amazing people will follow. Last advice about team. Many times I've seen amazing entrepreneurs fail at managing amazing talent. And the reason for that is that nobody trained you to do that. Because many times, a lot of you are just learning in the process on how to manage people. One of the most important concepts of managing people, it's called, I remember how it's called, sorry, but it's managing people according about the stage where they are, according to two variables. On one hand, on the right, on the horizontal axis is how much the person knows about what you are asking them to do, how much expertise they have. And on the vertical line is how confident they are on themselves. Many times, in my case, when I started hiring people for Mercado Libre, I believed everybody that I was hiring was amazing and that they need zero supervision. And that was a great failure from my part. It took me very fast to realize that people were not doing what I believed they were supposed to do. And I didn't learn until many years later, when I took this course, what was happening. What happens, and let me start with the lower quadrant, with the one that says S4. This is your typical graduated from a prestigious college. They believe they know everything. Well, they know nothing. But on the other hand, they are very motivated people, but they are not willing to learn because they believe that they know everything. So the first thing you need to do with this quadrant is to do what the Marines do, and is show them that they know nothing. It's like Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. They know nothing, but they need to understand that they know nothing. How do you teach people that they know nothing? You do what the Marines do. You give them chores, very short-term chores that you supervise very frequently, and then they start understanding, because they're smart, that they don't know. Once a person understands they don't know, they are willing to learn. And typically they move to the next quadrant in the upward, the S3. In this case, now you have someone that knows. So in the first quadrant, you need constant supervision, very constant, sometimes even daily. In the next quadrant, you need to start teaching them. And then more about supervising, it's about counseling them. You start having meetings with them in which you teach them what they need to learn. And sometimes you're not the person to teach them, but you find the person that is going to teach them. But then what happens is that the person learns, but doesn't know she or he has learned. And it moves to the quadrant on the top, which is in which you need to give them confidence. And then you start giving them chores in which they can succeed, because you need them to start gathering confidence for the last quadrant, which is the directing, which is the best quadrant you want people to be, in which you leave them alone. That being said, you are going to hire people that are in that quadrant the moment they come. And the worst thing you can do with that people is managing as the delegating ones. If you try to manage an amazing person that knows what to do and needs confidence, you let that people do their show. You're not on top of them because they will hate you. So my advice to you is try to understand everybody that is under your supervision, where they are, and manage them according to this. And try to teach the people that you have that is going to manage people also this same concept. Because if you try to hire everybody as if they are amazing, they are going to disappoint you. And in the case of the ones that do are amazing, you try to manage them as the ones that are in the delegating, they're going to quit. So that will be all about team. I don't know if there are any questions at the moment.
Yes, we've got a couple questions, Eric. First,
perfect.
We've got, hold on, Bao from, hold on. I lost her.
Here I am. From B2Go.
You were asking for a question.
Yes, Eric, thank you very much for all of the classes. It's a master class. I am really enjoying a lot. My question is, I feel that the VCs are on fashion, that the startups that are growing needs to contract a lot of people all together. Why this is happening? Why, for example, when you receive investment, you are asked to contract, I don't know, 50 people, 100 people all together, knowing all of the problems that you are telling us that we can have?
It's a very valid question, and let me take one step back and tell you our point of view as venture capitalists, which is important for you to. From our point of view, there are two outcomes of investments. At least successful VCs, that's how it works. You either have companies that grow 20 times or more, or they're failures. That's how we see the world. I'm not saying that is how the world is, but that's how we see it. So when your vision is you need to have 20 success of 20 multiples, you need organizations that grow exponentially. And even though there are organizations, there are exceptions in the world in which some organizations, and do very notable, are WhatsApp and Instagram, that require not a lot of people to be extremely successful. On the other hand, if you think about amazing success, but if you think about WhatsApp or Instagram, they were acquired. They didn't have the ability to become on their own the organization that bought them, that it's Facebook. Facebook, on the other way around, never allowed itself to be acquired. Facebook always collected talent, either hiring it or acquiring it through acquisitions. So obviously WhatsApp and Instagram are amazing stories, but between those two and Facebook is an even more amazing story. No? So from our point of view, if you're not growing exponentially, you're not going to reach the 20 multiple that we want. On the other hand, what we have learned is if you don't hire talent fast enough, somebody else is going to hire it from you. Organizations that stop hiring people are organizations that start losing people. So that's why we put so much pressure into it. I know it may not be the best answer for you, but that's the reason why we do it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next, we've got Melina Cruz from Homely.
Hi, Eric. Just a quick question. What are your thoughts on hiring versus growing talent? Especially, there's a lot of people that tell you like, okay, not everyone that starts with you, it's going to go throughout all the path of the startup, right? So when's that proper time when you have to decide between my team's not grow, like the original team, let's call it like that, right? Not founding team, but like first employees are not growing at the path they should be growing, and instead I should focus on not keep investing on growing this talent, but instead hiring new talent. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts is that unfortunately, I have a couple of thoughts. Let me tell you the first one. My first thought is that startups are not good teaching institutions. You don't have to teach. You don't have time to teach people fast enough. That's why you steal people from Google. That's why you steal people from Facebook. That's why you steal people from Amazon. You don't have time to form them. It's like I'm old, but in my time, everybody would go and steal brand people from Procter & Gamble. Even Unilever would do that. You don't have to teach people. Now, when is the correct moment to do it, that's when having a culture of objectives become extremely important. So you can have conversation around metrics. You always want to have conversations about the objectives that person, that her team was supposed to achieve. So if you reach, because and definitely OKRs, please, if they give you a session of OKRs, take it. OKR is an amazing, but what you're going to, one of the things you're going to learn about OKRs, it's built not top down. The organization is part of building them. So when you make part of building the objectives, the person you have, they're responsible for them. So my advice is have objectives, and you don't have time to lose. And it's one of the most hard things to do, either to let go someone or to ask them to move aside. The amazing organizations do that. If you read about all successful organizations and all successful people in life, you will learn that they were ruthless in putting the right people in the right place. Being ruthless doesn't mean being bad. And that's why I do believe in having constant conversations, particularly with people. And that's when we go to this slide. Sorry, let me go to the previous slide. To this one, to the delegating slide. If you have someone that is not reaching objectives, that's when you move to delegating. That's when you start having very frequent conversations with them, sometimes even daily. So it's no surprise when you have to either let them go or when you have to ask them to, that you're going to put someone above them, which is also perfectly fine. But so I don't know if I answer your question or not. So trying to be very succinct. You're not going to teach, you're not going to be a teaching organization. You don't have the resources to do that. And you have to be ruthless about moving people at the right time. But ruthless doesn't mean being a jerk and not communicating people when they're not doing right. You have to, it's your right. It's your obligation to take people when you're not, and you have to give them time. And you have to delegate into them to give them an opportunity. But if not, you have to move forward. I don't know if that answers the question.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry. I have a question in regards of that as well. And when that person is actually your partner in the business?
Extremely difficult. And that's when we have not spoken about this, but that's when, sorry, who asked the question? Just to.
I'm sorry, I'm Vanessa. I'm from e-commerce brand.
Vanessa, sorry, but just to have a name. Vanessa, very good question. Extremely difficult to manage. I've lived it several times. And very difficult with it's only the two of you. Because there's not an impartial judge. Actually, this just happened, not true. This happened 1 year ago with one of our investments that fortunately now is doing great. And my recommendation for them is and they didn't have a board, because a board can be very helpful in this. But if you don't have a board, my recommendation for them, this is true, this happened. I told them, this is my recommendation. This is what I would do. Bring a third party, and they decided to be me, in which the three together decide the objectives of both of you. Because it's also fair to say, I cannot demand from you if I'm not doing my objectives. No, both have to meet objectives. So you bring this third party that both trust. And this is very important. Both need to trust this third party, because if there's no trust, it's not going to work. And then you decide the objectives and you start deciding to meet on the time frame that you could be 1 week, could be 1 month, could be a trimester. In the case of these guys, it was so bad the situation that it was at the beginning weekly. Weekly we would meet, and weekly we would see how they were performing. And that's in that case how it was solved. That being said, this doesn't always happen. And in that case, unfortunately, someone needs to move aside. And when you have a board, that is very easy. because the board, it's part of the responsibilities of the board to do that, and you want the board to help you do that. When you don't have a board, sometimes, and I hope that's not the case for anybody, it means the dissolution of the company, in all honesty. Sometimes it means there's no way moving forward, this has to end. But it's not what I would recommend anybody as a first thing, but actually it's what I told these two people at the time. If you cannot agree, then the best move forward is to dissolve. So, but I know it's not a good answer, but that's my answer.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions. One from Cecilia Mayas. How would you understand and get to know your consumers, especially when they're opening new markets and working with new technologies?
It's always, this is a question that it's always difficult to answer from my part, because it implies knowing what type of customers you have and what type of person you are. And let me start with type of person you are. Some people is very good at reading Excel. Let me give you an example. I play something called Football Fantasy, in which you build your team. And I'm very good at it because I'm very good at Excel. So I make trends and I know then to understand the players that I'm picking for my team from a purely numeric perspective. That's how I am. It comes from my mother telling me hechos son amores. So sometimes it's about reading numbers, in all honesty. Some people, it's very good at reading people. Unfortunately, this is a strategy that requires speaking with a lot of people. So you need to build a method in which you can very efficiently and speak with a lot, like the Marcos way I was telling you. Marcos, every week, this is true, every week, he will meet with a pool of both sellers and vendors. When he came to Mexico, I had to organize a pool of, and also there was a methodology on whom we were picking for that group. We could not just randomly pick. We would have to pick either, sometimes he will ask, bring me people that have, were very good vendors and then they left, or this time I want to speak with people, I don't know. So that every time you go into a new market, and actually, for example, from our perspective, we are always against recommending moving to new markets before you dominate your home market, because it's very difficult to meet new markets. But if you're going to do that, our recommendation is always hire people that already understand that market, because that way you significantly accelerate the understanding of that market. If you see successful technology companies in the world like Google or Facebook, you will see that what they normally hire at the beginning in other countries outside of their home base is salespeople. And the reason why they hire salespeople is because the number one attribute of a salesperson is their capacity to understand people. If you're going to be a salesperson, you need to understand the other person. So the best thing you can do to very quickly understand a market is hire people that is already selling to that market. So that's what comes to my mind.
Okay. Next, this one is interesting, from Fabiana. Eric, which has been your biggest mistake and what did you learn from it?
I've had so many mistakes in my life but I like to answer always that I receive a question. My biggest mistake. I have many. One was partnering with the wrong people. I'm not going to go into specifics because I will never speak publicly ill of anybody, but some of my biggest failures as an either investor or entrepreneur were not understanding correctly the long-term vision of the person I was partnering with. And it ended up being a mistake to the point that more than once the company had to close. So that is one mistake. Another very important mistake is, it took me a very long time to understand. Actually, it's what I was telling you at the beginning. I grew up, and it's still one of my biggest strengths of this concept of hechos son amores. No, I do believe in looking in what people have done, in measuring things that have been done. And if you come and pitch me one day, you will very quickly discover that I don't care about your Excel from today to the future. I will not even read it. I will just read your Excel from today and before. That's all I would. That being said, that for many years made me a terrible salespeople. For example, when I started raising money for our fund, I would go with people and I had nothing to sell. But because even though I believed we were going to be extremely successful, we had done anything. We had nothing as investors. So I would go to a meeting and people will tell me, Eric, can I lose the money? Yes, possibly we will lose everything, yes. So that was not the best sales pitch I could give. And it took me a very long time to understand that when I was selling, I had to sell the paradise that I believe. I believe, and fortunately we have been very successful and many unicorns after. I know we are achieving that, but I was not able to see that that's what I had to sell, this paradise, that the foundations were relevant. So I failed many times in convincing who could have been amazing investors because I didn't sell them the paradise that I needed to sell them. So those are the ones that have been and that have helped me moving forward.
Okay, so we've got a couple more questions, but we'll leave them at the end so you can keep on with your talk, Eric.
So I think we have 7 minutes. I'm going to go very quickly through the slides that I believe are more important. So I'm going to start jumping slides. I apologize for that. A strategy. What is a strategy? Is, in my mind, is what you're going to achieve between what your dream is and the resources you have. And a common mistake I see is that entrepreneurs want to do everything. If you read the biography of Steve Jobs, in it says the number one job of a CEO is saying no to all the things your team brings to you. My recommendation is try to, every time you have something that you want to try, even if you don't have the numbers, and this goes back to decisions taken very fast, try to quantify in some way the benefit versus the cost and take the decision based on that. This very quickly, when I was studying at Stanford, I remember we were in the library doing a project and we had to do a search online. And my teammate said, hey, I opened Yahoo to do the search. Yahoo was at the time the biggest search engine. I remember this friend of mine told me, why don't we use this search engine that is being developed by these two guys in the engineering school? It's called Google. My comment was, how stupid are these guys? How are they going to beat Yahoo? So it's obvious who the stupid guy was. No? But if you see the web pages of both of them, you can realize what the mistake of Yahoo did. Yahoo very quickly forgot that they were a search engine. And Google never forgot that. Google never moved into other things that now they do until they were the absolute kings on search. So my advice of you is have a strategy that is very focused. Don't move from your focus unless you need to, but normally the correct strategy is focus, focus, focus. As I was telling you, you have to have a very ambitious vision, but strategy-wise, you need to have, at the beginning, you need to have very small markets you can dominate. One of the things I always ask startups is, tell me what market you are already dominating, because that is the way in which you're going to be able to move forward to larger markets. You need these puppies that you need. You are this puppy that you need to learn a lot of things. So if you try to learn it conquering a huge market, then you're not going to do it. So a very niche markets today. This is extremely important. I was telling you that there are two traits that all successful entrepreneurs need to have. Hire an amazing team, but the second is being amazing at selling your company to potential investors. I don't know of a single company that achieved greatness that the founder was not amazing at raising capital, because there's going to be people that are not as good as you executing, but they're going to raise more money than you. And if they do that, they're going to have a huge advantage of it. So you need to become extremely good at raising capital. In the biography of Nelson Mandela, I found it very funny that he said that every time that he needed to become a guerrilla fighter, he was a lawyer, but he understood that he was never going to beat the apartheid as a lawyer. So he needed to become a guerrilla fighter. And he said, what do I do? And every time he needed to learn about something, he read. And that's the same for me. Every time I need to learn about doing something, I read. These are the two best books that I've read about selling. I recommend to you that you read them. Hopefully you're already an amazing salespeople, but if not, read these books, B.S. Mandela. In one of these books, it says that the things you need to be good at selling is being consistent, reciprocate, have social proof. I'm going to speak because we really are running out of time, and I want to be sure I touch about the most important thing about selling. And once again, it's vision. If you don't have an amazing vision, you're not going to sell. So don't care about what you have right now. Care about what you are building and believe in what you're building. That's what we investors are going to buy. To finish, I recommend you something that you need to have happiness habits. Being an entrepreneur, it's extremely difficult. I know it from experience. So you need to have things that bring you happiness on a daily basis. For me, it is running, it is meditating, it's spending time with my wife, with my kids, with my dogs. So find those things and do it on a daily basis. You need them. So that will be it. And let me see if I have a little, but maybe you don't have time also. I have 10 more minutes if you have for questions, if you want them. But if not, we will be done.
Okay, we've got one of the questions from before from Anna from App Lunar. They develop an app or technology for women's health and like the menstrual cycle. Their issue is they're not getting as much impact with investors because most of them are men. I think they don't connect with this product as much. So any recommendation?
Try to find, and I don't know the specific answers for you right now, but try, and you're right, many times we will not understand men. Try to find two things, either trying to bring numbers to the table, an example of companies that are already very large and are targeting that market. And I don't know who that company is, but let me give you an example. Another question that I always make my startups that I interview is 10 years from now, who is the company that is going to hate you the most? And for example, for Amazon, that company was Walmart. And it's true now, and I serve in the board of Walmart. So, and I can tell you, Amazon, it's a great foe. So try to find this example that you can tell investors, that you can tell them, we are going to become this company. I don't know who that company is, to be honest, but that will help your investor understand who you can become. Another thing you can do is try to find an example that maybe brings them to their world. And I don't want to go into your specific example. Let me give you an example I gave another entrepreneur. They were trying to tell me a business trying to reach lone woman at home. Like, and I really didn't understood. And like, I'm okay being alone at home. But that was my stupid comment. Until the entrepreneur told me, do you have daughters? I said, yes. Would you be okay for your daughter to be alone in your home and blah, blah, blah? I said, no, you're right. So that is examples that I can think, not good example, but it's what I think about.
Okay, if you've got time, Eric, we've got one more question. It's from Anna Habib, and she's asking, for an early stage startup, what profile would you recommend while hiring? Less skills, but more passionate, or more passionate and less skills?
Both, and that's what I was telling you about hiring amazing women. Don't compromise. Try to hire the best you can. That being terrible answer, I know. Try to do it. Really try to do it. That being said, Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE, he said in this book, in Winning, he says that every time he acquired a company, he very quickly realized that between talent and attitude always wins. No matter how talented a person was, if they didn't have the attitude, they were not going to be good. So yes, if you have to choose attitude, but don't compromise. Please don't compromise. Achieve both. You can. I believe me, you can get both.
Okay, so we've got one last one from Hiro. I hope I said your name right. He's trying to know how important is it to raise capital, or if it's enough to go on with their own sales, like to go on with their growth.
The problem with going on with your growth, two problems with that. And again, you're speaking with a venture capitalist that sees everything with this 20x vision. But the problem with never raising capital is two problems that I can come. One, that I was telling you, someone is going to raise the capital. Someone is. If you're in a successful category, someone is going to copy you and is going to raise capital. So you want to be the person that has the capital. The second problem is that what I have learned is that the fastest you start raising capital, the better you become at. And also, it's easier to raise capital at the beginning from friends, family, and fools, particularly the fools, than when you started, when you're going to start to raise capital from the larger funds. Larger funds are more complicated and are used to more sophisticated salespeople. And my experience with it, this happens to me a lot with, with another, I'm going to say with Endeavor. Endeavor many times brings me companies that are already relatively big, but that they are not successful at raising capital. And they are not because they never learned. And once they have and try to raise money from the Tigers, the SoftBanks of this world, it's very difficult because they never learned with less complicated people as friends, family, and fools, and like myself. So my recommendation is that the earlier you start raising capital, the better you're going to become. That being said, get the best terms you can. It's horrible when you see an entrepreneur that on the first Friends, Family, and Fools round gave more than 20% of the company. Don't do that. It's your company. It's the most valuable thing in the world. So extract all the value you deserve. So my advice is try to raise capital, because if not, somebody's going to do it. And the fastest you start, the better you will become.
Okay, thank you, Eric. So that would be all the questions. Thanks for your time. I'll give the word to Rogelio.
Eric, muchas gracias. Thank you very much for taking the time to be here with us today. People are asking that in LinkedIn, apparently they need to have like an email or something to contact you.
Okay, good question. I don't read email. I don't read LinkedIn. I read WhatsApp. I'm going to put my WhatsApp here. I beg you that. Okay, here it goes. I'm very afraid of doing this, but it's okay. Okay, there's my WhatsApp. More than happy to answer your WhatsApps. If you want time, more than happy to give it. I will give you my Calendly, and you take time. Never send me a LinkedIn. Never send me. I don't read those things, but WhatsApp I do read.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric. And thank you everyone for being here in this first session. As we were telling you at the beginning, we're gonna have one session every week, and we're gonna be emailing you all the details with the specific access to the sessions. And please invite everyone from your team. We know that these sessions can be very productive, so please don't be shy. We're very open to have more people from your teams. Our objective is to help you grow, so please be here with us. Also, thanks again to IDB Lab for making all these things possible. Follow us on our social networks so that you are informed about all of this, and see you again next time. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone.
Gracias. Thanks, Eric.